Have you decided to get a teleprompter for your home studio setup, but you're not exactly sure what goes where or how to get this set up correctly? I have noticed that this is a question that I am getting a lot from people, so I wanted to do a video specifically addressing this setup. So how do you set up your teleprompter in your home studio? I specifically say home studio because I am not talking about the really fancy, professional, crazy expensive teleprompters. I am talking about the more affordable options where you buy a teleprompter body and you add your own display and add your camera. So I want to make sure I say that up front. If you're looking for the pro stuff, there's probably a video out there. This is not the one. And if you are new here, my name is Kat and I help people to create more professional and engaging online presentations. And having a teleprompter honestly it's excellent for a home setup if you present often. If you're regularly running workshops, talking to groups, or if you even just want to make more eye contact or look at the people that you are talking to on web conference calls. These are all reasons that you might want to have a teleprompter. I'll also talk a little bit about scripts, even though me personally, not a script girl, but I'll explain the different reasons why we might be using a teleprompter and what you need to know when it comes to getting that set up. And I'm going to follow a specific order. First, I'll talk about the actual teleprompter. So the teleprompter that you would buy for your studio setup. I'm going to go over what you need to know and actually how you mount that. Then I'll talk a little bit about the camera. What are some things you need to keep in mind? What will work and what might not with a teleprompter? Then I'll go into the actual display. So what is projecting onto the teleprompter glass? And finally, we'll talk a little bit about software. So what are the different types of teleprompter software, because when we talk about software, we're actually often talking about two different things, and that can get a little bit confusing. So first, let's start by looking at a teleprompter, because this is why I broke it down. You can see in this picture here that we have the physical structure, so that we have a base that is holding, you can see that it's holding up a display. In this case, it's a tablet. You can also see it at the back that is holding a camera, and you will also see a 45-degree angle with the glass. And this is reflecting the display so that you can look, am I doing this the right direction? No, I'm not. So that you could look directly into the camera and you can see exactly what is in front of you. If we take another look at this, you can see that in this case, this is an example of a script being in front of you. So you're looking directly at the camera behind the glass, but you can see the reflection of what it is that you are supposed to read. I use this mostly to see what you are seeing right now. I can see this exact presentation that you are seeing. So that's the way that I primarily use it. But I wanted to make sure that I went over the structure before we actually break it down. So this first section that I talk about is the actual physical structure that's attached to this tripod. So let's get into that. The actual teleprompter body. So a teleprompter itself, you can find some pretty affordable ones, and the ones that I recommend are typically between $160 to $200 approximately. You provide your own camera and your own display, but the actual body and the glass, and this is a high quality glass so that you're not seeing double reflections, that is included in there. So let's talk about how you mount the actual product. So you buy a teleprompter, but now you need to put it in front of you. Here are a few examples of how you can mount one. The essence is if you can put a camera on it, you can usually put a teleprompter on it. I use a tripod, so you can see a tripod is one of the first things that I have here. It's sturdy, it's not connected to anything, so if I bump into my desk, I'm not bumping into my teleprompter or the camera that is on the teleprompter. You could also do something like a desk mount, making sure that it is sturdy. And you can do something like an arm. So maybe you already mount your monitors. You'll see a camera here, but your teleprompter would go there. Again, there are a few things that you want to clarify or confirm. For example, the first thing you should do is measure your space. You want to know how much depth you have behind the camera. What is the physical structure of your office? But also, how high do you want it? Where is the camera going to go? And then you have to do a little math. So my tripod, which is really hard to see, which is why I'm not showing my tripod because you can't actually see very much of it. But I have my tripod at a certain height. Then I've got my teleprompter, which takes up some height, and then I have my camera on top. So you need to do a little bit of addition to figure out how high you need this. So if you are buying a desk mount, you can make sure that you get the right size. You don't want it to be way too high and way too short. It also depends on, are you sitting or are you standing? How are you going to be doing the majority of your presentations? Now we want to consider distance. Distance means how far are you, your eyes, from the camera. So I'm actually about arm width. If I reach forward, my fingers almost touch. This is because of the shape of my space that I've got set up. The reason I want you to consider distance is because if you are reading something off your screen, you want to make sure that you actually get it as far away as you can while still being able to see it. But if it's too close and you are thinking about reading scripts, you are actually going to find that your eyes are scanning back and forth, and that's really distracting to a person. So the closer you are to the camera, the more your eyes have to move. If you're further away, they don't have to move as far. Think about sitting at the front of a movie theater. You're going like this. You have to scan back and forth. If you're sitting at the back, you just stay there. You can see the whole screen. The same principle applies here. Obviously, you might have some limitations based on your space. And when we talk about software, we can consider squeezing that software in so that it's a little bit more narrow. The next thing I want you to do is consider weight. Don't cheap out on a mount because it's really affordable. You want to first make sure it can handle the weight. You are not only mounting a camera, you are also mounting your teleprompter, and you're going to have a display. You want to have the math of adding up how much do those weigh. What is the teleprompter that you are buying? How heavy is your camera? And how heavy is the display that you are using? All of those things have to go together, and your mount needs to be able to support that. It's also good if you can adjust a little bit because a teleprompter is a little bit wider. A camera is really small. So you put that on the top of a mount and it's not really going anywhere. You're dealing with more, I want to say girth, but it's bigger. So you also want to make sure that there's room for balancing because it's not as small as a camera. It takes up a little bit more room, which is also something you want to make sure that you measure. My teleprompter actually goes pretty far back with the sliding rack for the camera. And so not everyone is going to actually be able to fit the exact same model of teleprompter in their space. And the other thing is to, confirm the mount. I mean the how it actually mounts. So in this case, yes, the weight the weight matters, but you also want to make sure what is the mount that I am using. Most teleprompters use a 1/4 inch screw, which is typically what a camera would go on. So if it fits a camera, if it can mount a camera, it's probably going to also be able to mount your teleprompter, but confirm if I'm buying a teleprompter, if I already bought one, what kind of screw does it need? Is it a 1/4 inch or is it a 3/8 inch? And make sure that you have the right one. You can always buy an adapter if you don't have the right one, but that's a helpful thing for you to think about in advance. So that's the actual teleprompter body. Now let's think about the camera. So the camera, you do have multiple options. Sometimes we think, oh, you can only use a really fancy camera. Well, when I first got my teleprompter, I was actually using a phone and the phone worked just fine. And let's think about what are the things you want to consider when it comes to mounting your camera to your teleprompter. Camera angle does matter. When we looked at the picture, you saw that you have a little display. I'm really small right now, so it's hard to actually show this, but let's maybe go to another window for a second. So when you are looking into a monitor, there's a frame around the glass. And if you have a really wide camera, meaning it's showing a lot of your room, there's a very good chance that it's going to pick up the sides or even maybe the top and bottom of your actual teleprompter, which is not what you want. You want a clean image. You don't want anyone to see the border around your teleprompter. So if you have a really wide camera angle, like a 16mm lens, you might find that you have to get a little tighter with the shot. Perhaps in some software, you have to zoom in a little bit so that you don't have that happen. In my case, I tend to lean more towards 24mm or 30mm, which makes sure that's a bit of a tighter shot. I also tend to zoom in. For me, using Ecamm also works with OBS or any other streaming software, you'll be able to zoom in a little, but it might not be your studio setup. That might not be your ideal. So you want to make sure that you test that. The next thing, the position of your camera. So you should try to have a central position behind the glass. If it's too low, you're going to catch the bottom of your display. If it's too high, you're going to catch the top of the glass. And if it's off to the side, you're also going to catch one of the sides. So you want to make sure that your camera is positioned centrally. I have used my phone, I have used a webcam, and I have used my Sony ZV-1. All of them have worked with this, but I usually have to adjust a little bit because occasionally I will catch part of the edge if it's a little bit wider, like the webcam. You also want to make sure it's close to the glass. So as close as you can get to the glass. You don't want to touch it, or you don't want to bump it, especially if you have a lens that goes in and out. You want to make sure that you measure it with the lens fully out before you do this. But you want to get as close as possible to that glass so that you are as tight as possible. That will essentially also help with eliminating seeing the side as around your teleprompter. And you're going to actually connect your camera to your computer just like any external camera. If you attach a webcam, if you have a phone, or if you have your DSLR or a fancy camera, you want to make sure it's connected to your main computer. I know sometimes I get questions where people think that they have to connect the camera somewhere else because it's part of a teleprompter. No, just think of it as something in between your camera and the tripod. The camera still connects to your computer, so you can select that camera. Okay, that's the camera advice. Now let's get into the display. And when I say display, I mean the thing that you actually want to see on your screen, and it will be reflected into the glass that you are looking at. There are a few different options. I'll go into those options, but first, I just want to highlight what are the things you actually want to look at or look at on a teleprompter. What most people think about with a teleprompter is a script or just their speaking notes directly in front of them so they don't have to look down or glance anywhere else. The other thing you might want is just to see other people's faces. Maybe you are on a web conference call, having a meeting with other people. You want to be able to look in the camera while you look at them. You can do that with a teleprompter. And finally, your presentation. This is what I primarily use my teleprompter for. It's what I call a confidence monitor, meaning I can be confident that I know that what I'm seeing is what you are seeing. So every time I do a presentation like this, every time I do a live stream, I always show exactly what you are seeing. So I know what's on the screen is also what you are seeing. Occasionally I get it wrong. That happens. If I'm doing something like a Zoom workshop, that's where I might mix it up. I might actually choose to have Zoom in front of me and see the slides, but you have to decide what it is that's going to work best for you. What's the thing that's going to help you focus on your presentation so that you're not getting distracted and having to look somewhere else. You essentially want to make it more seamless for everyone who is watching you. So what are the options? There are 3: separate mobile device, connected mobile device, and a connected monitor. When I say mobile device, I'm mostly directing towards tablets. Phones also work as well, but I mainly mean tablets or phones or an actual monitor. So let's talk about each one. First, I'm going to show you an example here. This is my actual live setup. So this is what you are seeing right now. This is a monitor. I used to have a tablet, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But you are deciding what's going to go here on the bottom. What's the display that I'm actually going to have? So if you have a separate mobile device, i.e. a tablet, the tablet, when I say separate, I mean it's not connected to your computer. What might this look like? This could be having an iPad with Prompt Smart Pro. I believe that's what I used. When I did actually, there are a couple of times where I recorded a script for my website. I wanted to make sure I was saying exactly what I intended to say. So I had Prompt Smart Pro on my iPad. It was not connected to my main computer. The camera was, the microphone was, but my script was not. I did kind of cheat by having, and it's not cheating, but as a way to actually use the Prompt Smart Pro, I did attach a trackpad to mine. You don't have to do this if you use one that's voice activated, but I found it awkward to have to kind of reach over and reset it, reach over and scroll back. So I did like having either you can have a mouse or you can have a trackpad, something that's attached to your tablet so that you can control it, because your mouse or however you are managing your main computer is not actually attached to that. So that's something that you want to think about. So that's the first option. The second option is a connected mobile device, meaning you have a tablet, but it's actually connected to your computer. That means you can either extend your computer screen on to the tablet in front of you, or you might even mirror the screen so that you can see the exact same thing on the tablet as you can on your main computer. For example, managing a Zoom call. Some people find that the controls are really small on their teleprompter, so they actually want the controls on their main computer, but they mirror their main screen so that they can see the faces in front of them, but the controls are down below. The tricky thing with this is that not every piece of software that connects your tablet to your main computer flips the screen. And when I say it flips the screen, I mean you can see this the right way. And I'm going to talk about this after I go through the last option. I have a little demo that I've prepared for you. So that's what you need to know. You can connect your tablet or your mobile device, but you're probably going to have to run some piece of software that will actually extend or mirror the display, but you also need to flip it. The third option, your connected monitor, that is what I'm currently using, and that is what I recommend if you have the budget. This means that you are connecting it just like any other extra monitor. So if you have a laptop and you add a monitor, you can choose to extend it, treat it like more screen real estate, or you can choose to mirror it. Both of those are options for what you want to see in front of you. The beauty of having a monitor is that it's plugged in, so you don't have to ever worry about your tablet losing charge or your monitor. With a tablet, you have to make sure that it is charged, so that's something to consider. And it doesn't run any software, so it's taking less of a load on your computer. It is just the same amount as if you were to connect another monitor. Okay. What I want to talk about is the flip versus the mirror. And I said I have a little example. So this is really high tech, by the way. I have a whiteboard and I said, can you read this? You can probably read this. Let's go to my overhead shot. And if I hold this down here, well, now I'm blanking it, but you can see, can you see this? This is, yeah, this is not the best angle. Here we go. If I put this here, the glass is reflecting it and the glass is saying, can you read this? But it's backwards. And so we want to make sure that when we are using a teleprompter, we can actually see it in the right direction. Did that work? Did that get my point across? Really rudimentary example, but I wanted to just show that if you just put any old display down there, everything's going to be inversed and you won't actually be able to read it. And there were a few times early on where I actually just had it backwards. I just wanted to see the output for a YouTube stream. That technically worked, but if anything was on the screen, I couldn't read it. So if someone placed a comment on the screen, it was backwards. I couldn't actually read that. So technically for something like a Zoom call where you just need to see people's faces, if you're not controlling it from there and you just want to see people's faces, it could be backwards. But if you have any words, you want to see it in the right way. This means that if you have a connected device or monitor, you need to be able to flip the image so that you can read it properly in the glass when it is reflected in the glass. If you are using a script software on a tablet, you want to make sure the script software can flip so that you can read it properly in the glass. If you're extending your monitor, you want to make sure that you can flip it. So essentially, you need to make sure that you are either using a proper software that is designed to allow you to see things properly. An example, I used Air Display. Air Display was an app that I had on my iPad and I had on my computer. That would allow me to flip what I was seeing, and I could decide, am I extending it or am I mirroring it? I've tried both. You could use something like the Luna display or Luna app that actually has a dongle that connects your computer. That's another one that will allow you to flip, one that I've heard I have some friends who use that and they enjoy it. Something like AirPlay If you are a Mac user and you have an iPad, you might think, oh, I'll just use AirPlay. AirPlay does not allow you to flip it. So if you use AirPlay, everything's going to be backwards. Also, I find it sometimes not always reliable. That's something else that you want to think about. If you're buying a monitor, you want to make sure that monitor can flip the image. Do not be fooled if it says, oh, this monitor can mirror, because that usually means mirror is about mirroring your screen. So what you see on the main is what you see in front of you. It is not the same as flipping it or inverting it so that you can read it through glass. Hopefully that makes sense, because I know people have been a little bit, oh, not there yet. I know some people have said to me, oh, this 10-inch monitor is a great deal. I want to buy it. And it says it mirrors. And when I look, it has no language about flipping. If it's really inexpensive, it probably does not actually invert or flip your screen. So that's something that you want to pay attention to. The one I use is the Beatronics 10-inch monitor, and it does flip. I know the Lilliput monitor also flips. And I guess I'll just say quickly around size, this is all about measurement. Personally, I am recommending the Glide Gear TMP 100. And I realize I don't have a link right now, but I will get you one. Glide Gear TMP 100, it will fit a 10-inch monitor. And when we talk about the sizes, you might see, oh, well, it's actually less expensive to get a 7-inch monitor. Let's take a look at overhead. The way that I have this set up, this monitor fits really nicely for the size of my teleprompter, which means that this glass gets filled with the screen. If I had a smaller one, it would take up less of this, so it would just be a little bit smaller. I would just caution that when you are looking at your budget, think long term. It might mean you have to wait a little bit longer to be able to afford a slightly bigger one, but I don't want you to regret buying a smaller teleprompter or a smaller display because you wanted to save $30, $40. A lot of times it's not a big jump from the 7-inch to the 10-inch. Sometimes it is. This is an investment, and I would say it's a worthwhile one if you are presenting a lot. The $300 that I spent on the monitor, some of the best $300 that I invested into my business in the last couple of years. So I want you to think about that. Okay, software. And I realize this is crooked, so I'm going to fix this. When we talk about software for teleprompters, I find that it often gets mixed up. Someone will say, I need teleprompter software. So there are two types. One type of teleprompter software is script reading software. So when you look up teleprompter app, you might see script reading software. That is usually set up so that you can actually scroll your script. Sometimes it'll auto scroll, you can set the amount, it might be voice controlled. And typically, good teleprompter script reading apps will allow you to do that inversion so you can read it through glass. That's one type. The other type of software that people are talking about with teleprompters is making sure that they can extend a tablet so that they can see what they want to see, which is essentially turning your tablet into an extended monitor, but you want to be able to invert it. So those are the distinctions. One helps you read scripts. The other helps you see your display properly in your teleprompter. So when you're doing research and looking up teleprompter software, I want you to realize that because you might be confused. And I've seen that in communities as well. People will say, hey, I'm looking for teleprompter software. What they actually want is something to flip their tablet screen so they can read it properly. But other people will say, oh, I use Prompt Smart Pro. Well, that's a script reading software. So those are two different things. So I wanted to make sure that I express those. In my gear, which there's a link to my gear, that has the Air Display app that I used to use. Luna Display is another one. I haven't used it, so I don't think it's in there. As far as the teleprompter goes, I just want to say that I have the Caddy Buddy teleprompter. It is in my gear link, which is linked to this video. However, it is pretty long, so it goes back pretty far. I don't know if you can see this in the overhead, but I want to address it. It's kind of hard to see, but there, yeah, you can see it actually goes back and it touches my curtains. So I've kind of stopped recommending it for people who have tighter spaces, and instead the Glide Gear TMP 100 versus the Caddy Buddy, which is the one that I have. So you do need to measure your space. I want you to do research so you're not stuck with something that does not fit or work in your space. But as a recap, you want to think about the teleprompter itself, about the camera that you're going to use and how to position it, the display that you want. What do you want to display? Do you need any software? Do you need to flip it? Do you need to connect it? And of course, is there software that you need, whether that's for reading a script or for flipping a tablet or mobile device? Once you think about those things and kind of break it down in those component parts, you will be able to successfully set up a teleprompter in your home studio, and it will help you to create more professional and engaging online presentations.